Welcome back to the One Hole Designer Tutorial Series. This is episode 18. Um, in this episode, we're going to be talking about fairway heights. In the last couple of episodes, we went through and used the multi-tool or multi-select tool to delete big chunks of what we've got going on here, just in case we don't like what we ended up putting down. And then we also went through and added rough around our fairways. We talked about rough and deep rough, the advantages and disadvantages of both. So I've only gone through and added a band of rough going around. I have not added deep rough yet. I'll do that later on just because I want to see what my tree line looks like. But for this episode, like I said, we're going to be talking about fairway height. This hole is actually pretty playable right now. I could bring up all my trees, and it's playable enough. I've got my sand, I've got my rough. This doesn't look too bad, but it's kind of boring right now because it's all flat. You may have mentioned, I think it was back in episode 3 of this series, I chose to start with the flat terrain instead of a hilly terrain, which means that now I'm going to have to go through and do all of the elevation changes by hand, not only on my holes, but the surrounding environment too, or else this is going to look very boring. So the easiest way to go through and change your fairway heights with sculpt, make sure that you're on flatten, and I would recommend one of these tools for this. I'm going to use this tool. So you want to start with your lowest point. What we're going to do is we're going to take certain points around our maps. This is we're going to use the tee box, we're going to use the landing area, and then we're going to use a couple points inside here. And we're going to set just the general height that we want them to be at. So I've mentioned before that I want this to be a downhill tee shot. I'll take you through the different heights. I want this to be a downhill tee shot. This is going to be about 25 to 30 yards higher than where the landing area is. And then going around the course, it's going to gradually get a little bit closer to ground level until you get to the green. I want the approach shot to the green to be about 10 yards, or 10 feet down. So we're gonna set this right quick, and I'm just gonna raise this a little bit. We're just gonna raise that 2.5. And we're going to raise this section 5 feet. 7.5 here. 10 here, and then the actual landing area at 12.5, because if you'll remember, I just set my green at 2.5, so that's a 10-foot drop. And then I'm going to just completely skip over to my tee box, and I'm going to set that at, let's see, I wanted it 32, so 42.5. We'll just call it even 40. Doesn't have to be exact. So from the tee, what it's going to look like going down. It's actually a little bit higher than the course or the hole that I'm trying to recreate. I did want it to be a pretty drastic drop, so that's what we're going to do. So we are now left with some pretty ridiculous looking hills going throughout our fairway, which is fine. That's how we're going to do it. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to slowly slope this down until it meets our landing area here. The way to do that is to use this. It's kind of hard to brushes work. What's going to happen is everything in the middle of that circle there is going to stay the same. So I'm on height of 0 inches, and if I press X right now, it's going to keep whatever is in that circle in the middle. It's going to keep that the exact same height, and then everything in blue is the only thing that's going to change. And what it's going to do is it's kind of average out all of the land that it's highlighting. So if I were to hit X right now, the land around in the blue would slightly raise up to try to meet the average height that I'm at right now, which means it'll kind of raise up the rest of the land going around it. We're going to do that, but we want to do it very gradually, which is with the soft brush. And what I'm going to do is just move forward slightly. As I move forward, it's actually, you can kind of see what's happening. it's kind of sloping land. I'm not actually hitting anything, but it's going to take whatever is in the middle is going to be the average, and it's going to try to raise the ground all around to meet that average. So I'm actually going to start right here, and what you're going to do is literally make sure you're in a straight line, and you're just going to apply and move forward, apply and move forward, apply and move forward. And it's going to, you can see it kind of raising the ground up around us. We're still going downhill, but we're basically just going downhill and making it gradual until we get to this point that we want to. It's raising the fairway up right now. I'm just applying every time I do this. You want to be careful that you aren't going too slowly, because I do want to make sure that the point that I laid down is where the height ends up at. So I'm leaving pretty big chunks here to make sure that the fairway is actually the height that I want it to be at, because as you can see, it's kind of raising it up right now. So if you want a really good example of playing around with height, I recommend checking out Driver T course, the Oak Trace 9. He's got a hole on there that from tee to green it raises 100 feet, and you can barely tell. It almost looks straight. So give that a shot. I don't remember what hole it is, but it's a pretty good one. So I'm like I said, just literally going around and moving and applying just gradually, and it's going to change the height and make everything look not so boring. I'm only doing one hole here, so it's important to note that you will have other things going on in the background. This looks really bare right now, but right now we're just kind of focused on this one hole. We'll talk about that in later videos, but almost done here. I could have done this all off air, but I did want you guys to see the whole process. So see how that raised a little bit to the green? I didn't do that exactly right. I'm going to have to go back and lower this just a little bit. That popped up a little higher than I wanted it to, but I can do that off air. Alright, that should be it. If I zoom out now, this is a very gradual change in elevation until we get to the tee box. I also mentioned in previous episodes that I was going to raise this toolbox, so I'm again going to have to raise my toolbox to make it, or not my toolbox, my tee box, to make sure that I've got a nice elevated toolbox, or tee box there. I don't know why I keep calling it a toolbox. And we're done. So now I'm downhill. Now there's a little bit of character to it. I'll add some hills and the lake in coming episodes. So it's starting to really come together here. Honestly, a lot of the end part here is just so. Till the next episode.